fight, we give them a fight! Move out!
Today I'll be talking about Call of Duty Black Ops 2. While I'll be the first to admit that I don't usually have fun with first-person shooter single-player campaigns, I did find quite a few things about Black Ops 2 that I liked. However, I'm getting ahead of myself here. So, Black Ops 2 takes cues from previous COD games in terms of storytelling. Missions are split between the past, mid-1980s, and near future, with past missions being flashbacks. You play out a variety of scenarios ranging from assassinations, stealth, tide-turning battles, and even a real-time strategy kind of mode, which I'll explain later. Graphics are nice, and there's nothing to complain about apart from some low-res foliage and textures here and there. The modern missions are the standout here, featuring nice futuristic UIs and a sleek modern design that really hammers home the difference between the two settings. Motion blur and bloom is kept to a minimum, which is always a plus in my books. However, there is a sickening amount of head bobbing, which made me physically ill in some sections. Let me rant a bit here by saying that we don't even experience head bobbing in real life because of our vestibulo-ocular reflex, which means that our eyes autocorrect for our body's movements. There's honestly no need to have head bobbing in a game when we don't even experience that same sensation in real life. Anyway, like graphics, sound is fairly average. Just a few complaints about the inconsistency in volume in several sections, most notably the cutscenes versus the in-game noise levels. The BGM that plays in the first modern stage is quite nice, but apart from that there's nothing really that memorable. And now the meat of the discussion, the gameplay. So most missions will require you to achieve several objectives which varies gameplay substantially. Without fail, you'll be assuming direct control over at least one missile or turret or combat mech or surveillance unit per mission. Controls are generally fine on foot, you won't have trouble moving from point to point, though it is a bit irritating when a stray bullet stops you mid-sprint. In a vehicle, however, it's an entirely different matter. For example, on the horse mission, the horse is just absolutely atrocious to control. You can't, there's no sensitivity in turning whatsoever, and you just can't backpedal. I mean, like, that's realistic in terms of a horse. But similarly, you're gonna have an awful time controlling the quadruped vehicle. The guided missile controls also feel sluggish and require several full sweeps of your mouse to get you where you want to go. Missions nearly always start out way too slow, with some bad pacing and a real lack of control for a good 5 minutes or so before the fighting actually starts. And when missions do begin, gameplay almost becomes too hectic, as you are being shot from all sides with little reprieve. This forces you to stop every few seconds, regenerating health, lest you die and have to start from a checkpoint. And this pacing really hammers home what is missing from most modern FPS games. Not to use Black Ops 2 as a scapegoat or a martyr, but the way that the game feels like it wants to be played, as a fast-paced action shooter, is constantly being held back by needing to take cover to regenerate, and a severe lack of accuracy when firing from the hip. Conversely, if Black Ops 2 wanted to encourage a slower, more thoughtful, tactical kind of gameplay, this is hindered by the constantly respawning enemies, quick-time events, incredibly low hit points for both player and enemy, and the constant pressure of one-hit kill grenades that are always forcing you out of cover, into the open or the enemy's line of fire. The loadout system before missions is nice and goes some way in allowing you to customize your approach to each stage. You get to choose your guns and perks, although I was stuck in a situation with only my secondary. Because you don't know the mission structure beforehand, I inadvertently chose a shotgun, and so had no range when I was asked to destroy some truck gunners, since I had already lost my primary. Guns are solid to use. They make a real impact, although enemies can sometimes feel like bullet sponges, especially on the harder difficulties. AI is similarly hit and miss. Some enemies feel genuinely intelligent and will try and sneak up on you or use cover when you fire at them. Others though will stand still in the open and shoot blindly until you put them out of their misery. One final point about the new type of mode that was added. A top-down RTS that lets you command and control a variety of units. While it's a nice idea in theory, in execution it's poorly done. You simply do not have enough troops to cover all critical points at once, and your troops are so inept when you're not controlling them. And obviously if you do control them, you can't micromanage your troops, leaving you with a frustrating catch-22. Thankfully these missions are entirely optional after the initial mission, and you don't have to touch them again if you don't want to. That said, it is a nice change of pace, and I appreciate that they are trying something different. On the whole though, I was left feeling very unimpressed and a little bit motion sick from the game. Black Ops 2 also lacks a certain amount of polish that you'd expect from a big budget game like this. The game is obviously catering to those with shorter attention spans, which is evident through the amount of quick time events, explosions, swearing, and perspective changes the game is constantly throwing at you. Like I said before, while I appreciate that Black Ops 2 is trying to mix things up, it does this in a very narrow way. You have the sense of you're doing something because the game is forcing you to, rather than because you want to do it. And while there was a bit more freedom in level design from past games, you really railroaded along a set path. For all the negatives though, Black Ops 2 isn't a strictly terrible game. As stated earlier, it does quite a few things right, and has the potential to break away from the sea of innumerable first-person shooter games being released and developed. Oh well, maybe next year.
We were hit by ground and air drones.